After World War II ended in 1945, the story of Germany's Tiger tanks, some of the most iconic armored vehicles in military history, did not end on the battlefield. Instead, their journey transformed into a long, complex, and often surprising tale that stretched across continents, research labs, scrapyards, and museums. As the fighting stopped, Allied forces moved quickly to secure every remaining Tiger I and Tiger II, King Tiger, they could find, not because they planned to use them in future wars, but because these tanks represented a rare opportunity to study the engineering that had terrified Allied crews during the conflict. Despite being heavy, slow, difficult to repair, and extremely fuel-hungry, the Tigers had built a formidable reputation due to their powerful 88mm gun and thick armor, and so the United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union all wanted to understand exactly how these machines worked. In Germany, abandoned or damaged Tigers were scattered across battlefields, towns, forests, and roads, and Allied recovery teams pulled them out with cranes, transporters, and salvage vehicles, marking the beginning of a massive post-war investigation into German technology. Engineers and analysts documented everything: turret layout, armor composition, optics, tracks, transmissions, engines, welding methods, and manufacturing shortcuts made during late-war production. For many countries, this research was not just about copying German ideas, but about comparing different design philosophies and learning what worked and what didn't. The British, for example, invested significant effort examining Tiger 131, which had been captured in North Africa. They ran detailed firing tests, measured armor angles, studied the Maybach engine, and evaluated reliability, and even after formal testing ended, the tank remained valuable as a training object. Meanwhile, the Soviets transported Tigers to the Kubinka proving grounds near Moscow, where engineers put them side by side with T-34s, KV tanks, and the developing IS heavy tanks. The Soviets were especially interested in armor metallurgy, suspension design, and gun performance, and their reports noted both the impressive firepower and the practical limitations of the Tigers. In the United States, captured Tigers arrived at Aberdeen Proving Ground, where they were test-driven, photographed, and mechanically examined. But American crews quickly discovered the practical problem every army faced. Maintaining a Tiger outside Germany was nearly impossible. The tanks needed enormous amounts of fuel, spare parts no one manufactured anymore, highly trained mechanics, and constant attention just to stay operational. As early Cold War tensions rose and new tank projects like the M46 and M48 in the US, the Centurion in Britain, and the T-54 in the Soviet Union demanded attention, the Tigers stopped being relevant to modern military planning. Their value changed from combat study to historical documentation, and by the late 1940s, most armies decided they could not justify dedicating resources to preserve foreign heavy tanks. In many cases, damaged Tigers that had been pulled from the battlefield were cut up for scrap metal, as post-war Europe desperately needed steel to rebuild cities, railways, and industries. Some Tigers sat for years in depots or storage yards, gradually rusting until they were quietly dismantled. Others were cannibalized to keep a handful of museum pieces intact, meaning one Tiger might be sacrificed so that another could be rebuilt for display. A few were buried under rubble or used as targets on test ranges, where they were observed for armor-resistance studies. Meanwhile, museums around the world began to realize the historical importance of preserving at least a few examples of these rare machines. In Britain, Tiger 131 eventually became the only fully operational Tiger tank in the world after an extensive restoration decades later. In France, the Saumur Museum preserved several late-war German vehicles, including a running Tiger II. In Russia, the Kubinka Tank Museum kept its own Tiger II as a static display. In the US, pieces of Tigers survive across multiple collections, although none are operational due to the lack of parts. Germany, after the war, initially preserved almost no Tigers, but eventually restored a Tiger II for its own museum. As decades passed, the narrative of the Tiger tank shifted from its wartime reputation to a broader understanding that revealed both its strengths and its flaws, such as mechanical complexity, high maintenance demands, and limited mobility, which made it impressive in short encounters but unsuitable for prolonged campaigns. Enthusiasts, historians, engineers, and filmmakers contributed to the global effort to document the Tiger's engineering, their production story, and their impact on armored warfare. Restorers discovered unique details, missing components, battlefield repairs, factory variations, and late-war shortcuts that reflected Germany's struggle to maintain production under intense pressure. Today, fewer than 20 Tigers of both types survive worldwide, scattered across museums in Europe, North America, and Asia, and each tank represents an extraordinary journey from battlefield weapon to historic artifact. These survivors teach modern audiences about engineering ambition, the limits of overcomplicated designs, and the evolution of armored vehicles. The modern restoration of Tiger 131, for example, required thousands of hours, a global search for missing parts, and even recreating components from scratch using old blueprints. Visitors who see these tanks today often feel awe not because of the tank's destructive power, but because they represent a time when engineering, strategy, and industrial capacity collided on an unprecedented scale. The fate of the Tiger tanks after World War II is therefore not simply a story of scrapping, saving, or testing. It is a journey that reflects the transition from war to peace, from fearsome machines to historical treasures, from military secrets to museum centerpieces. Their legacy continues to inspire documentaries, books, video games, and research, but the real value of the surviving Tigers lies in what they reveal about the past, how nations build, use, and understand powerful technology, and how the meaning of that technology changes long after the battles have ended. Today, each surviving Tiger tank stands as a reminder of innovation and its consequences, preserved not to celebrate conflict, but to educate future generations about engineering, history, and the choices societies make in times of crisis.